had a decent summer. Went to, like everybody else, get wrapped up with the Olympics and Wimbledon, and then after that, when the season got underway, that's a little bit difficult, once the teams come back and prepare for their pre-season. So did a bit about the house, about the garden, and then once the season got underway, got to as many games as I possibly could. For whether I'm working with the media, the radio, the TV, or just on my own getting to a game. So I've managed to keep myself busy at weekends, and each weekend I've got to a game, predominantly in the Premier League, but I have seen other divisions, and it's been reasonably good. It's not as good as being totally involved.
A lot of managers often do that, managers and coaches who are, out of work. Is it just a case of ticking over by going and watching other games? How do you see it?
Yes, I think so. I mean, I enjoy watching my football. I enjoy football, and naturally at the higher level you go, the better football you see, it's more entertaining. But the fact that I've been involved in the Premier League in recent years, most of the games that I've got to have been Premier League. Not them all, but most of them. And from that point of view, it's just to look at any changes that's been made, how any particular team that we faced in the years gone by, whether they have changed, new players that have come in to try and improve their team, just keep in contact with that, so that when and if, or maybe if I'm ever involved in the future, that I am on the ball. I know what's what. So I tend to look at what fixtures are there and try and get to see a team that I haven't seen. So I want to cover as much as I possibly can all the Premier League teams, and then I'm actually in touch with what's happening at each club.
You talk about domestic football there. There's been a report in the Irish Independent today linking Harry with potentially taking over from Giovanni Trapattoni. Is that something you'd be interested at all, national football?
I've been involved in it before. I think it's a wee bit premature. I think there's, due to the result, Ireland losing the biggest defeat at home, I think that is shaking everyone. But the fact is, if they win tonight, they're going to have 6 points from 9, which is not bad. I know that losing 6 in a fixture like that is demoralising, but I would like to think that they will bounce back. And Trapattoni is a very, very experienced manager, and there are experienced players. I'm hoping that one or two of them will be back from the Ireland's point of view, but I think at the weekend there, without Given, Dunn, Robbie Keane and Damien Duff, that is a big slice of a team, and they lost all those players. I think Robbie Keane could be back, and that'll be a big blow, because he is a leader. He's a leader on the field and a leader in the dressing room. So it's most certainly need that factor there now, because it's I wouldn't say a transitional period, but there are players that are maybe not as experienced as previous teams, and I think they need those players to guide them through, what should be a victory, but it is a tricky game. I think they played Sweden at the weekend there, and Sweden just pipped them in the last few minutes with Ibrahimovic. So not an easy game, but one that they can get 3 points from.
Is international football something that interests you more? I mean, you're not obviously out on the training pitch every day. It's obviously a much more laid back job in theory. How do you kind of see it?
Not really. They have got their pluses and their minuses. I enjoy. I've been in the Premier League, been fortunate enough for the last 8 or 9 years, so it's been enjoyable. Not only the Premier League, but fortunate enough to get into the Champions League and the Europa League, so that is exciting as well. So I think you're going from a particular job that every day, every week, there are fixtures, there's congestion, and that you are very, very busy. Whereas if you're involved in a national team, it's slightly different. There's an intensity, as there is now when there's a double header for your nation who you're working for, when you're hopefully qualifying for a World Cup or a European nation. So and then it just goes down a little bit, and then there's a period where you've just got to concentrate in senior players. So there is a big difference in that. And if you ask me, on my recent experience. I do prefer to be busy, you know.
The other one that's been in the papers is potentially Harry taking over at QPR should Mark Hughes go. Is it a project that would interest you?
Well, again, I don't think it's fair. We've spoken about Trapattoni, who's he's preparing for a very difficult, tricky game tonight, and the same applies to the other members of that profession. And so I wouldn't really comment on people who are in a job. I don't think it's right. I know in that particular job you mentioned that the man at the top, he's backed him, his manager, he's backed his man, and that's the way it should be. The season's just kicked off, it's just underway. Not only I haven't really seen them this season, I haven't got round to them, but there are other clubs that I have seen who have brought in new players, and they will need time to settle, and that would apply throughout. You know, whether you're a team that's done exceptionally well last year or a team that hasn't done well, you know, it does take time for players to settle in. So I think it's only fair that you allow them to get on with it and do their best, because I think they're under enough pressure without all the speculation that could be thrown at them.
Finally, on to Scotland. There's been a lot of talk, obviously about Craig Levein and how he's done. Do you think it's fair on him? Do you think there's always going to be a lot of pressure having that job because of how much people care about it there and maybe the resources they've had?
I don't think it's any different from any other job. The only thing is you have in football, you're working with a national team, you have fewer games, and when it comes round as it does now, and especially when you've got 2 games inside a 10-12 day period and preparing for that, there is a lot of intense media spotlight on the international managers, and if you have a bad result or things aren't going as well as people expect them to, and I think in Scotland that there is an expectation, as there is in England, and they're wanting their country to qualify. And Scotland got off to a disappointing start. I didn't think they played too bad, but they only get 2 points from their 2 home games, so that brought a lot of pressure on the third game, which was against Wales, and it didn't go well for Scotland. I thought they were going to run out and win the game, and there was a big turning point. The decision to chalk off Fletcher's goal, which would have given Scotland 2-0 with but quarter an hour to go. I wouldn't have seen any way back for Wales, but that was a turning point, and then Gareth Bale got a grip of the game and Scotland couldn't handle him, and it was a bad result for Scotland. And the game against Belgium, not an easy game, is a huge game, and we've got to get something from it.
You talk about Stephen Fletcher there. How key is his reintroduction to the national fold?
Massive. Yeah, I do. I've seen him twice this season. In the previous season when he was at Wolves, he did very well. When he was at Spurs, he did very well against us, and he scored a couple of goals and led the line well. I think he's a good player. I think he's a player that Scotland need. Yeah, he's in the situation we're at the moment, where you've got Wales and Belgium in a short period of time. To be able to have players where you can play, and if you're fortunate enough to rest or prepare them for the next game, and you don't need to use them over the 180 minutes, you can. That is something that I don't think Scotland have had. I think Kenny Miller's had the burden of really playing up front on his own, game after game, where he hasn't been able to get a little bit of a breather, and I think that is difficult. So, not just the fact that Fletcher has come in and got that goal disallowed, he also made the goal for Morrison. He made another great chance with a nice little header down for Morrison, and failed to take the volley. So I think in that game itself you can see what he has to offer. So I think every player that's out there that's eligible to play for Scotland and that is in form, I think you want to be able to be considering them to be ready if called upon to come into your squad.